NLP Radio is on air. Hello.
Всем привет.
Hello, everyone.
And here in our studio today, we are having Alexander Gerasimov, a very well-known NLP trainer, NLP master, a famous negotiator in Russia, and me, Olga Sarkisova. I'm a linguist and a philologist. Today, I'm interviewing Alexander on the topic well-formed outcome. But first of all, I'd like to say that this stream is our second season of NLP Radio. We have read American books, we have heard American trainers, we have digested lots of information in English, and we have prepared something to share with you. So now here's something we want to treat you with. We've cooked something for you. Today we are discussing such a technique, such an instrument, such a helping goal-setting tool as a well-formed outcome. Alexander, could you tell us what is it for? What is it for, this technique?
Зачем нужна?
What this technique is for, it is needed to properly achieve your goal. I would say even more, to guaranteedly achieve your goal. This technique consists of a number of steps you should make. At first, as a technique. The first one, you should take a sheet of paper or pen or a laptop or a PC and write down or type answering rather simple and clear questions. But what is much more critical is that eventually this technique becomes your thinking strategy. You start thinking using WFO technique. It's not just a technique that you practice. It's reprogramming of your mind to enable your thinking through the idea of goal achievement. Because those goals make our life conscious, and magnitude of our personality depends on the size of goals that we achieve. And the WFO technique helps you to integrate this thinking paradigm.
Very interesting for our English and American audience, maybe Australian audience. You say HCR. Is this abbreviation? Is this an acronym? What is HCR? Let's try to decipher. Х in Russian means хорошо, good or well. S means сформулирован, formulated, and R, result. So altogether, it's a well-formulated result. In Russian, we call it HCR. So when you hear from Alexander HCR, it means a well-formed outcome, just for you to know. Okay, so you're saying it's a paradigm of our thinking, which is much more than just a technique. Okay, so what is it for is clear. What are the steps? What are the steps of building this tool? Let's start with it.
Да, здесь есть 7
It
шагов.
includes 7 steps. It is recommended that you should make those exactly in the proposed sequence. However, there is a peculiarity here. For example, I say step number 1, we will comment anyhow on this issue. I even suggest that those who are currently listening to this podcast should take a sheet of paper and a pen or a laptop and put down or type a goal of them. I mean, what you would like to get in your life. It may be something specific, like a certain purchase, or it may be something rather abstract, like a state or a situation. Just put down what is inside of you, your inner true wish of possessing something. And we will make those 7 steps together with you, with my commands. First, I'd like you to look at what you have written down and to formulate your goal using positive wording. I mean, not through avoiding something like I don't want, or I'd like to stop, I'd like to discontinue, or to avoid, but in positive wording. Literally, answer the question, what do you want? What do you want to get? What do you want to own? What place do you want to visit? Let me give an example. For example, when you call for a taxi and get a cab, when you get into the cab, you tell your cab driver, "Deliver me, please," to, for example, the Kievsky railway terminal. You don't tell him, "Don't deliver me to the Moscow railway terminal." You don't deliver me there, please. No. You tell him the destination where you want to get, but not where you don't want to get. So the first critical step is using positive wording while describing what you want to get. Well, this is the first step. Step 1.
So to say, it must be affirmative form. Affirmative form, not a negative form, because I am rephrasing what Alexandra has said. Very often formulations are very ill-formed, very wrongly formed. So as your wish is formed wrongly, it will definitely lead you nowhere. So starting from the right, correct formulation. Where do I want to get? How about, for example, learning a language or losing weight, losing kilograms? It's also a goal, isn't it?
Yes, for example, what weight we would like to have. Not how many kilos or what shape we would like to have, but the desired weight. We have 6 more steps ahead, which will anyhow adjust our goals, and if you suddenly find out that you have used negative wording, replace it with positive wording to form your goal. Just rewrite that goal. Then we will analyze step 2. We can even put it on hold to do it.
So while you are writing, maybe we should correct a little. If a person writing a goal doesn't want something, he doesn't want to be in debts or bank credits, for example, how is it better to formulate? Let us help the audience. How should we say, I want to be free from debts?
I would say it in a different way. I want to have a certain income, or my own money, a certain amount of money, on my account. As for money, there is a separate viewpoint. Some of NLP trainers believe that it is difficult to us to set financial goals. But I'll tell you about it a little bit later, when we get to step 5.
So maybe to say to be free from debts, free from sugar, free from chocolate, free from dependence.
Well, there is a strange dividing line here. When we're talking of what we don't want, or want to get free from something, it's actually some kind of positive denial. For example, we want to quit smoking, to be smoke-free, to quit an addiction. Look, our brain is designed so that we are thinking through images, sounds, and sensations. And we're talking about the simplest example I give during my trainings. Imagine, please, not a dog. And you imagine a dog to which something is happening. In our case, we have the same situation. When we want to be sugar-free or smoke-free, we imagine how we remove it from our life. But before we remove, we should invite it to our life. So in this case, I would suggest either from the very beginning describing your state as healthy. For example, having certain results you could get at a clinic, such as, for example, blood test results, including certain parameters. Or you get on floor scales and see a desired result. Or you log in your client bank and see how much money you have. This is listing of what you want to get. We will discuss this goal in more details at step 3. But in general, this is step 1.
So summing up, to keep focus on the positive statement. Keeping focus on a positive statement. Okay?
Yes.
Right. So what's this next step?
After you have rewritten your goals, if necessary, we can get to step 2. Step 2 is an answer to a question: how much my goals depend on me? An example that could be given here is that some goals depend on us. For example, to have a cup of coffee or to drink some water to go to gym. Few things can prevent us from achieving such a goal. This goal almost absolutely depends on you. Another category of goals comprises goals that absolutely don't depend on you, or you can do very little to affect that goal achievement.
Uncontrollable results.
For example, it could be your influence on the dollar exchange rate, your influence on the weather, on the national economics, some large-scale processes that we can't affect only occasionally or indirectly. However, at the same time, at a certain extent, we have an effect on them. Do remember the following metaphor. The flutter of a butterfly wing at one side of an ocean can cause a hurricane at the opposite side. We can influence those goals anyhow, but we can realize a model that chain has worked. Those are uncontrollable goals. Let me introduce the term partially controllable goals. You partially affect those and partially you don't. For example, a person sets a goal, I want my boss to increase my salary. It seems to be positively formed, and the first requirement seems to be met. But then we start thinking, how can he increase my salary? I must do something for this, like go to work, run negotiations, take some new projects, be proactive, or something like that. In this case, our goal partially depends on us, and partially doesn't. The idea of step 2 is to reformulate our goal so that it would depend on us as much as possible. For example, you should do something. Talk to your supervisor, figure out how one can get an increased salary, for example, for accomplishing certain results, and accomplish those results. This will, for example, lead you to a situation when your goal is achieved. So at the second phase, at step 2, we reformulate our goal, making it depend on us.
So we partially influence this goal, so try to reformulate it, rewrite it in such a way that it could be mostly dependent on us. So dear audience, if you're writing now, so keep writing. I believe we can move on to the third step.
Yes, step 3 implies that you can and must imagine your goal visually, auditorily, and kinesthetically, as well as smells and tastes. I mean, you should imagine your goal in most detail so that you could see it in all your perceptual filters.
Фильтрах восприятия.
Perception filters. What you're talking about, are these modalities or submodalities? What is it?
Да, это
Yes, it means to imagine a situation, and it should be a very vivid, specific, and looking realistic. If there are some sounds, for example, if it is a car, engines thumping, if it is sensations, it could be sensations of touching, of pressing the accelerator pedal, of your car acceleration and inner sensations, the feeling that this thing belongs to you. For example, Olga, when you realize that a car is yours, how do you understand that?
Yes, sure, I definitely do it. It's a very good example because I used to drive my own cars that belonged to me for around 16 years. And over the last year and a half, I drive car-sharing cars, which do not belong to me. And the feeling of mine and not mine, it's very obvious for me. It's very obvious. But I find it hard to explain the difference. it's difficult for me to explain this difference.
That's it. You should add awareness to have a very distinct feeling of mine and not mine. For example, you have a phone. It belongs to you, and you know it. And you have a mine feeling, and next to it there is my phone. It does not belong to you, and you have a not mine feeling. This kinesthetic difference is very important. It is what should be added to that goal, a mine feeling. My goal belongs to me. To avoid situations when you write down a goal, like I'd like to have a car, and you finally get a car. For example, for business purposes, you drive it, but it's not yours. Or it may be typical to other goals when you are given something temporarily or leased it or something. But a person wants it to belong to him. That is his goal. But he cannot obtain this feeling because he didn't instructed his unconscious to make it this way when he formulated his goal. So at step 3, apart from images and sound, you should also add the feeling of possession. You may ask me, well, Alexander, I can imagine possessing a house or a car or something else, but what should I do with abstract goals such as happiness, love, appreciation, freedom? Every such an abstract term implies a very specific understanding of what it is. For example, the word happiness. Everyone has his own or her own understanding of it. But you should write down what it means to you, what you will see, hear, and feel when you are happy. So step 3 is concretizing the goal.
I believe we should already be very, very professional to be able to feel it. And we should definitely have very high level of awareness to be able to really catch this feeling, like when it's mine or not. I have been studying NLP and attend trainings and reading books for more than 5-7 years maybe, and I cannot say that I am able to do it. I cannot do it.
Да, это очень такое тонкое ощущение, но оно тонкое ровно.
Yes, it is a very delicate feeling, but it is delicate until you start catching it, feel it. Eventually, step by step, making it more and more specific. After you have written down, after you have run your goal through the third filter, I suggest that you should check it once again using the first, second, and third filters, because during rewriting you may accidentally find out that the first of the second requirement is not met. So you should run your goal through all the 3 filters simultaneously. Step 4 is when, where, and with whom. A metaphor when you look through a telescope or binoculars and you are focusing lenses to get a distinct image. You shouldn't say, I want it always everywhere or forever. I suggest that you should very precisely specify the space geographically, where exactly you want to possess something, when exactly, by what date you want to get it, and if there is such option. Next to who should be present at the same time, because there are various streaks of our unconscious, which, in order to optimize your goal achievement, may give you the goal you were dreaming of, but not at the time you dreamt of. In 20 years. If you were dreaming of having a car when you were young, a very tough car at that moment, in 20 years it may be a rarity which you don't need, and your friends give it to you, and you think, what do I need it for now? The timelines of goal achievement is also a very critical component. You'd better know it for sure and to focus your attention on when, where, and with who. and to set a framework for a goal achievement for your conscious could better focus on achieving that goal.
Yes, and our subconscious is very cunning. It has got a lot of tricks, and there is a joke. If you want your wish to come true, stop wanting it. As soon as you stop desiring, it will come true. So you're very right here. It must be specified when exactly, at what time period limit do you want it. It all plays the role. It's all significant. Okay, so we don't have so much time, but so much to discuss, so let's move on.
Да, и пятый шаг — это так называемая экология.
So step 5, so-called ecology. It is a very abstract, unspecific step which is difficult to measure, to feel it at the first time, but along with practice. I would say it is somewhat the key step in your goal achievement. Ecology is taking consequences of larger systems into consideration. Ecology is taking consequences of larger systems into consideration. For example...
Would you please repeat it? It's important. Would you repeat it once again? What is ecology?
Ecology is taking consequences of larger systems into consideration. For example, when we achieve certain goals, when we obtain some resources, I won't say we lose. We rather convert something. For example, when we want to earn more money, we, for example, spend less time with our family. Or when we want to have a good body shape and to go in for sport, we, for example, cannot work. So our life is actually some balance between select contexts of our life. So our objective is to achieve our goal without diminishing in certain contexts. I can use the following metaphor to skim an edge or a wave without leaning too much forward or backward, to the left or to the right. For you could achieve your goal and your relatives, friends, and credible people could keep in touch with you, or for you wouldn't lose your health while earning money. So some people, specifically young businessmen, willing to show off their dedication, to show their eagerness and efforts to their supervisor, they lose their health. So the objective is to take these larger systems into account, to harmonize, to balance everything. For this purpose, you should determine significant contexts of your life. Those, for example, could be friends, health, finance, relatives, and near and dear ones. Well, yes, free time, and there is balance somewhere at this point. And that's you who should determine this balance. It may be determined by different ways. For example, through your inner sensations. It happens. For example, when you achieve some goal, your body begins to resist. It doesn't want it. It's your unconscious which takes ecology into consideration and tells you it doesn't match me. It's high time to mention the so-called timelines and goal achievements. How to solve this problem? You may just talk to your credible people, dearest and nearest, and tell them, for example, that you plan to make your career for some time, and that therefore you will spend less time with them, with your family. But, for example, on weekends, you'll be with them and won't think about your job. In some cases, you can combine contexts. For example, you go to a gym to work out and listen to your favorite NLP radio for the purpose of studying and personal development. In some cases, you can discontinue contacting with a large system. For example, when you grew up and stopped communicating with your former schoolmates or even groupmates because you had left the system and stopped communicating. There are many methods, and this is the most unspecific item. The more you practice here, the more skills in negotiation with larger system, skills in selling your goal, the easier it becomes to you. Well, I can give an example.
Yeah, I think we definitely need examples here because I'm sure a lot of our listeners are already in trance at this moment.
Да, давайте приведу такой пример.
Well, for example, a businessman starts up a business and wants to earn a lot of money, but his family wants him to be with them. They reproach him. You don't spend time with us. You are absent in the evening. You always spend weekends at work. And they resist and want that businessman to spend more time with them. What can he do in this situation? For example, the businessman comes to his family and says, "My dearest beloved relatives, children, when I earn my $1 million, I'll give a Lego set to each of you. And we will spend vacation in the Maldives with you, my dear wife. And as for the mother-in-law, I'll give her what she wants." As a result, all of them become some kind of co-partners in achieving the goal. So now, when he comes home tired from his work, they won't annoy him. But on the contrary, realizing that he is working for their benefit, children will be trying to play more quiet and won't hamper their dad. And his wife will want him to eat good and to sleep good, for he could have more strength, and the mother-in-law will be keeping silent when he comes home to have some rest. So what's happened? Negotiations with larger systems have been run to make everyone within a chain to be glad, for each component of the system would help achieve this goal.
Right. I think it's very clear when the elements of the system are living people, animate creatures. But what if the elements of system are not human beings? Are there such system where we should lead negotiations with not people, maybe objects, phenomenon, feelings, whatever else it could be?
Если это какие-то процессы, то часто
As for some processes, those processes are initiated by certain people.
Okay.
То есть можно найти либо лицо принимающее
You can
решение в
either
этом процессе.
find a decision maker in this
Если
process,
это
if it is
называемый
so-called
эгрегор, то
egregor,
есть некая система,
some system, a complicated
в этой
system, there
системе
is
есть
someone
кто-то,
in
кто
such system
влияет
who
на
has
эти
influence,
процессы, и можно
and you can match,
выстраивать с ними
build
раппорт,
rapport
как
with
мы
them,
говорили в предыдущем
what we
подкасте,
discussed
и
last
уже
time,
с этой системой
and to have talks with that
Yeah,
system.
it's interesting because we didn't speak about building rapport with a system. We only discussed building rapport and matching with a person. Now we can understand that it's much wider. It's much wider, building a rapport with a system. Okay, let's keep it.
It's the topic for another podcast.
Definitely for another one. Okay, so here are 5 steps. How many steps are there overall?
Их всего 7.
There are 7 of them. It was the 5th. The 6th step is availability of resources. Who or what can help you to achieve your goals? It's not necessarily money when you can just buy something. It may be time that you can allocate, free time. It's also about your skills and abilities, for example, an ability of building rapport. It may be your connections, your assistants, who are able to help you achieve your goal. It's even maybe your social media subscribers and followers.
These are all connections, right?
Да, тут не только
Subscribers.
Yes, not only those who you know personally, but also those who know only you. This knowledge, not only skills as abilities, but knowledge as theory.
How about money?
Деньги — это как раз именно ресурс, материальный
Money is
ресурс.
a tangible resource. Amongst those resources, money, time, knowledge, connections, skills, and social resource subscribers, we can convert between them to achieve our goal. We can pay for someone who would help us do it. Having free time, we ourselves can learn more about how our goal can be achieved. Using connections, we can get access to where we couldn't get access even for money.
Yeah, it's a great skill and ability to be able to convert resources. So what is point 6? Converting resources or getting resources?
Ну, для начала
Begin with, we should realize what you have, audit, an inner understanding of how much free time you have, how much money you already have at the moment, persons you know who have already achieved that goal or can tell you about it or help you. Maybe there is information in the web from people who have already achieved these goals, and when you realize what you have and what you should add, what and into what you should convert to achieve your goal.
All right, I see. So, resources. What's the 7th one?
After you have made step 6, I suggest that you should once again attentively examine all the 6 steps. Once again, answer the question of whether your goal is formulated positively, whether it depends on you, whether you can imagine it distinctively, where, when, and with who you will be achieving this goal, whether or not you have taken into account consequences of those anyhow participating in achieving this goal, and whether you have enough resources. After that, you may make the first step to start moving toward achieving your goal. It may be something symbolic. For example, if you want to buy a car, for example, you are rather young and you dream of a car, it could be reasonable to search the web for information to buy a Brilac, to figure out where there is a garage for sale or to rent at your district.
So, should step number 7 be making a step, for instance, buying a symbol of your goal, or not necessarily?
In NLP terms, the 7th item at step 7, we open a toad because we have a psychological feature, so-called Zeigarnik effect, which says that if we have begun to achieve some goal, we will unconsciously focus on it. If you, having thought through your goal, have made some step, it means you have launched this process to achieve your goal.
Okay, right. It's a very huge topic, definitely, and it needs more programs. But probably the last question I will ask here is, what are the necessary conditions for changing, and how can we be flexible? How can we be flexible for our changes? Does it depend on us?
Я считаю, что это самое важное, это знать,
Well,
чего вы
I
хотите.
think the most important thing is to know what you want. In principle, it is probably the most critical to know what you want to achieve or to obtain, because none wind is fair to a ship that doesn't know where to go. When you know what you want to obtain, then, due to your flexibility, you will be able to achieve any goal, to convert any resource into any resource, to find a person who has once achieved that, to find assistances who will do something instead of you or who will help you. The most critical is to know what you want and to have crazy flexibility to achieve this goal. This is what I want to wish to everyone, because availability of goals make our life meaningful.
Yeah, it's a very good phrase for the ending, for a bright ending of this program. Dear listeners, dear audience, are you following us? Are you writing with us while we are discussing those points? Are you writing your goal together with us according to Alexander's instructions? Anyway, I believe this program has been useful for you and you've got lots of bright insights. So if yes, your likes are welcome, your reposts are welcome too. And please do write your commentaries, your insights, share with us. And we hear each other later in the next program.
Всем спасибо. Goodbye.
Bye.